When you like Ventura TV Appliance on Facebook, it's nice. But when you love the Samsung big screen we deliver, it's even better. Our website is cool, and it's a good place to start. But you really should touch the merchandise before you buy. Time for that upgrade to an HD 3D web-enabled Samsung TV. Get the best selection, price, and service in town without waiting. Come in to Ventura TV Appliance and touch the merchandise today.
Hi, I'm John Mallows. Welcome to this live edition of Connect with Me on the showroom floor at Ventura TV on this day. Glad to have you along on a Friday morning. Today we're talking politics, and Congressman David Valadao is in the House. He will be answering your questions. He is running for re-election in Congressional District 21. We'll take your phone calls at 436-ME-TV option 11, and we'll be here for the full 60 minutes. Back in a moment.
Tonight I want to discuss the importance of the television medium to the American people.
This Friday morning. So happy to be here. It is your community segment here on Connect with Me, live on Comcast Channel 187 as usual, as we've been here for the last 3 years. 43.6 as usual, and now we're live on 13.1, and of course you can watch the replay later today, 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock on YouTube, 8 o'clock tonight on Biz TV. And you know, later on, you can catch us on YouTube, because we will post this program, as we do every program, on YouTube either a day or two later, so you can catch us here on Connect with Me on the showroom floor at Ventura TV. Before we get into the program, I do want to say that the baseball playoffs continue tonight, my friend. I'm just so excited. It's going to be Baltimore and Kansas City. Tomorrow the Giants open up in St. Louis with Madison Bumgarner on the mound for the San Francisco Giants against Adam Wainwright. We'll see what happens. This is the best and my favorite time of year, because you've got postseason baseball and the Giants are back in the hunt. Anyway, we're talking politics and a run for the 21st Congressional District right here in the Central Valley. This is our main topic today. I'd like to put up a map of the 21st Congressional District. We're going to put up actually two. This is a huge district, my friends. It covers parts of Fresno County, Kings, Tulare, Kern. This makes up about, I'd say about 71% of the Hispanic population. I think our guest today can kind of correct me on maybe some of the numbers of what I read on the internet. 17% are white, but this thing is huge. It goes all the way down to Bakersfield, almost all the way up to Los Banos. Not quite, but it is a gigantic district. As for the one who occupies the seat right now, he is 37-year-old David Valadao from Hanford. He is the son of Portuguese immigrants. Valadao grew up on a family dairy farm, graduated from Hanford High School back in 1995, attended college at the Sequoias, College of the Sequoias in Visalia, now serves as the managing partner of the Valadao Dairy Farm, which he owns with his brothers. He entered politics back in 2010 when he ran for the state assembly and won. 2 years ago, he won a seat in Congress. Now he is running for his second term in the nation's capital. And live in our studio now, we're very happy to welcome for the very first time here on Connect with Me, Congressman David Valadao, who represents the 21st Congressional District. He's here to take your phone calls, 436-ME-TV option 11. We'll be talking water, we'll be talking high-speed rail, we'll be talking immigration, all of the above. We're back with our program and your phone calls in a moment.
Tune in to Heartland for the best in true country music. Relive vintage specials, one-of-a-kind concerts, and country music's earliest videos. Heartland is the heart of country, the only place where you can find country music, country stars, and country lifestyles 24/7. Heartland, the heart of country.
Now on channel 13.2.
We're we're back here on the program and very happy to welcome in for the very first time on this program. Have admired him from afar for a long time. His name is David Valadao, the Congressman from the 21st Congressional District. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on, John.
Hey, it's a pleasure having you on. First time. You know, it's interesting because now, you know, I'm really into this postseason baseball thing. I'm a big Giants fan. I don't know about you, but mixed in with that is all these political ads now. And it's like one after the other. Yeah. Vote for David Valadao. Vote for your opponent, Amanda Renteria. Vote for this guy. Vote for that guy. What do you think of the ads?
Well, and I actually try to avoid watching TV right now just because it gets so nasty, and I want to I want to focus on my family. I want to focus on what I do as far as representing the district today, and I just want to pay attention to what's going on there. I'm not a fan of the campaign side of things. Yeah. I want to work. I want to do something good for the community, and that's always been my focus.
But if you watch baseball tonight or over the weekend, you're going to see those ads.
And this week I haven't been following as much as I like. I happen to be a Dodgers guy, so I'm sorry.
My condolences, my friend. I'm sorry. There's always next year.
Well, but no, it was one that I did watch a little bit here and there, and some ads did pop up, but. I'm a little surprised, though, Kershaw got beat the way he did. I don't know. Are you? I know we're getting off topic here, but are you a little shocked at that, too? Yeah, the comments of him being the Romo of baseball weren't pleasant to hear, but yeah, it wasn't good.
And I hope they don't fire Mattingly, because I am a diehard Giants fan. I have been since I was this high. But you got to respect Kershaw, and I love Don Mattingly. He's a good manager, and I hope they don't fire him. Who are they going to get to manage the team? Me? I mean, you know, he had no bullpen to speak of, so he had to leave Kershaw in that last game, and, you know, guy got lucky at a home run. What are you going to do? Yeah. Anyway, let's get to the topic of the day, and I'm going to talk about, you know, before I get into the water stuff and everything else, talk a little bit about your family, because you're from Hanford.
Yes, sir.
Grew up on a farm. You worked hard, sun up to sundown. Is that what you do on a dairy farm?
Well, my wife and I started dating in high school, so this is my college sweetheart. Actually, jump-started her car one day. She left her lights on on a foggy day. But no, born and raised to be a dairy farmer. From childhood all the way through college, I always had to work on the farm before and after school. My dad and mom, that was always their focus, is work hard, you'll be fine. So my wife and I got married, started having children, but I started getting more involved in the industry, started getting involved in things like our co-op and some of our producer groups, and that's how I got involved politically.
Yeah, now you have 3 kids, right?
And I have 3 children, and those 3 children, the last one was actually born during the campaign from my assembly seat.
Wow. So what ages? What are the ranges?
My oldest son, Connor, is 12, my daughter, Madeline, is 8, and my youngest son, Lucas, is 4. Okay.
All right, now let me ask you one final question before we get into the heart of this. Do you have problems with your 12-year-old, mainly the electronics? Do you have to go in and yank him occasionally because he's like got his head buried in there?
No, my kids do love to play with electronics.
They do, huh? Yeah. All right. We'll get on to the real meat of this program, and that is water. Okay, I want to mention that the House passed H.R. 3964. That's a bill that authored by David Valadao, the congressman here, this past February. It passed by a count of 229 to 221. And it basically says that the Sacramento-San Joaquin Valley Emergency Water Delivery Service, it deals with that issue on how water is going to be delivered and saved. Every Democratic member of California's congressional delegation voted against the bill.
Except one.
Why? Okay, one.
Yes, we got one. One that represents here in the Valley as well, and he knows that this has to be fixed.
But why did all the others pass on it? I'm a little shocked at that.
That's actually very frustrating, because there are a lot of those members who, constituents of theirs, would come into my office in D.C. and Devin's office and other offices and say, we need help. Your bill helps us. And we would ask them, have you talked to your member of Congress? And they say, yes, but they won't do the right thing and vote for this piece of legislation.
I mentioned Sacramento-San Joaquin Valley Emergency Water Delivery Service. What exactly does that mean, and what does your bill do to specify that we'll have more water in a drought year situation like the last 4 years?
And that's a great question. So the bill is a comprehensive bill that covers many different issues, because water is such a complicated issue. I mean, you've got the east side focuses mostly on the Frank Kern Canal, and you've got the west side who relies mostly on water from Northern California. And then us here, we're in the middle where I farm, where we do get some from the east side as well. So what it does for the west side, it goes back to an agreement that was negotiated between Democrats, Republicans, environmentalists, and farmers, and it allows us to pump more water out of the Delta. But back in the 90s, this Bay Delta Accord was negotiated and signed into law so that there was still, we gave up some water in the valley for the betterment of the environment up there in the Delta. And at the time, farmers hated it, we in the valley hated it. But it was, according to the Democrats up in the Bay Area, the last deal we'll ever have to make on water, because we're now going to be able to give water to both sides and protect both sides of the equation. And then after that passed, the last deal that would ever have to pass, they never stopped fighting to take more water. It was just chipping away little pieces here and there, adding a endangered species list or doing other things that just slowly pulled more and more water. And so we've gotten to the point now where this past winter, when we did have some rain, I mean, we're in a drought, but we did get some rain, we lost 800,000 acre-feet of water. And
right down into the bay.
And when you look at how much water went out into the ocean, it was over 50% of the water that went through the Delta went straight out into the ocean and did no good for anybody. And we could have pumped some of that water. And in the 70s, we would have been able to pump that water. Even though the last drought that was worse than ours that we have today in the 70s, we have 165% more water today than we did back in 1977. But in 77, we got, I think the state and the federal was 40 and 25%. I forget which one got what.
Now that is the California aqueduct there. We're looking at some of the video here, and I believe this is on the west side. Am I correct about that? Okay. And
that's the one we're talking about right now.
That's the one we're talking about right now. And so we recently had the Stephanopoulos family, a farming family here on the west side, talking about that California aqueduct. They can't just dip into that anytime they want. Talk about the federal regulations that require what to use it.
So the problem is they're contracted amounts of water people are supposed to get. The farmers are still paying their full contracted amounts for the operations and maintenance of that system, but they're getting 0% of their water. And that goes across to communities as well. Communities like Avenal, like Coalinga, like Mendota have been struggling because they're not getting their water. They're getting a percentage of their historical use. So every year they use less, and every year they get only a chunk of their historical use as their average goes down. And so it's hurting both sides, not just farmers, but communities. And my bill would allow us to pump more water out of the Delta.
Caller, you're on the air with the Congressman. What's your question, please?
Yeah, a question for the Congressman. Besides the water issue, how do you stand with immigration? Are you for or against it? Has nothing to do with amnesty or whatever. I want to know why I should vote for you. If you give me an answer directly, and how you personally would vote on it, and the reason is, I mean, there are a lot of Hispanics and whatever. Mm-hmm. You're going to need a lot of Hispanic votes.
Yes, sir.
And I think what you have to do, go to door, or even with an interpreter, to go out there and get the votes, because a lot of votes, when it comes down to, the voting time in November, the thing is that a lot of them don't go, okay? And I think they're doing a good job on the other side where they are going door to door and getting, the word out that their vote is needed, whatever. You could tell, David, that the majority of the people that do go and vote, a lot of them are Hispanics and that kind of stay back a little bit because they, just for that reason, because they're not always there on those primaries to begin with. But I think this is going to be more important.
Okay.
I know on our side it's been already passed through with the other candidates. So
okay. Thank you, caller. I really appreciate the question. Okay.
So the answer is, one, I've actually spent quite a bit of time in the Hispanic community. I do speak Spanish, so I did 2 debates in the past week in Spanish. I did 2 in English. So I've been reaching out to the community. As far as the specific question on where I am on immigration, I am one of the 3 Republicans in the nation that did sign on to H.R. 15, which is a little bit of a controversial bill, but I do believe our immigration system is broke. I'm a son of immigrants. I've gone through and seen a lot of my relatives go through the process and see why it's messed up or how it's messed up and how it needs to be fixed. Especially here in the Valley, because the area is such just a melting pot of so many different immigrant populations. Some Portuguese, we've got a lot of Greeks, we've got a lot of Armenians, we've got especially a lot of Hispanics, but it is something that I am very supportive of, something that I do believe it has to be a common sense system, but we have to fix the system that's there today. Our visa system is old and outdated and way too slow. Our guest worker programs are pretty much non-existent, and our border security is obviously something that I'm very concerned with today, especially with what's going on in the world with terrorists and the drugs that are coming into this country along the border. But I am one of the guys that signed on to the legislation. I'm one of the guys that continue to fight to make sure a working immigration system is implemented, and it is something that I'm going to continue to fight for. And at the same time, when we are walking and talking to people today, I've reached out to all the Hispanic TV stations and radios. I've always done everything I can with my very rough Spanish, but still get the message out. And I also have been on some Portuguese stations as well, so I try to reach all three because I do speak all three languages. So I appreciate the question.
All right, thank you, caller. And Congressman, we'll be back in just a moment here. Got to take a commercial timeout on Connect with Me. When we come back, I'll ask the Congressman about H.R. 15 and what that entails, and your phone calls. 436-ME-TV, option 11. Back in a moment.
Thanks.
The consultants at Solar Negotiators are here to help you. A call to Solar Negotiators is like calling 5 solar companies at once. You see, when local established solar contractors have gaps in their schedule, they call Solar Negotiators to fill them. Right now, get 5 years of panel cleaning and maintenance or $1,000 off your new solar panels. So stop wasting your time searching and call Solar Negotiators, because when contractors compete for your business, you win.
Back here on Connect with Me with Congressman David Valadao. I think a caller is there, or he was there. Okay, well, call back, no problem. 436-ME-TV, option 11. You co-sponsored the bill, the immigration bill in Congress. You were one of the co-authors, October of 2013. H.R. 15, what does it entail, and where does that bill stand?
So the bill still sits in the House. The House leadership has chosen to take a step-by-step approach where they go through each different issue in immigration to try to resolve it. My struggle with the House leadership, Republican leadership, is that they're not taking a step. We need to start with a step. If most of them say we got to secure the border, well then let's pass the bill. But what the bill I signed on to does is it's comprehensive. It covers all the steps. There's some stuff in there that I don't love, but it's stuff.
What steps do you take in that bill?
Well, and that one starts
securing the border, right?
That one starts with securing the border coming up, and the McCall bill, which is a Republican Congressman from Texas, who is the chair of the Homeland Security Committee. His bill is the chapter that secures the border, and once the border is secure, operational security, then it goes into fixing guest worker programs, visa systems, and things like that. And then it does end up with a program that allows a path to citizenship. And most people assume that's a citizenship for 11 million, but it is a process where people go through, we figure out who they are. The ones that are bad and have caused trouble obviously won't be able to go through the system, and then there are those who...
So you in favor of amnesty for the 11 or 12 million with certain guidelines or conditions?
I'm in favor of fixing the system and figuring out who these people are, and there are a lot of really good people that have just come here, worked really hard in the fields, worked really hard in restaurants and hotels, and allowing them to get right with the law, pay their penalties, pay their back taxes, and allow them to get in line to become citizens.
Yeah, you're just saying sift them out and see who they are and what they want here.
You can't assume all 11 million are the same, and there's going to be Dutch, there's going to be Portuguese, there's going to be Irish, there's going to be all different nationalities in that, and we want to make sure that there are some that are good people that we want to sift them out and allow them to stay, but you can't allow all of them and you can't deport all of them. You have to come up with a system to figure out who they are, and then allow that process to go forward.
Caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hi, my name's Raquel, and I'm actually from Sanger. And I was just curious what the Congressman, I just started listening, so I'm a little bit behind here, but what is the Congressman, what do you feel is your biggest accomplishment so far? I know you haven't been in Congress that long, but I was just curious.
So there's a lot of little things that we've done. Obviously, there's bills sitting in the Senate right now, like my water bill, which would be great to have it signed into law. We're currently negotiating with the Senate, and the President, the White House has started to get involved in the negotiations too. So being this close on the water solution is actually something I'm very proud of, and it's closer than we've ever been.
Just to update our viewers now, there is a Feinstein bill in the Senate, right? And then your bill is in the House, and I guess everybody in the House and the Senate, they're trying to work on a compromise bill that kind of takes from both yours and Dianne Feinstein's bill.
And that is true, and that's where we are today. But we are sitting around the table and talking and coming up with solutions.
But why not pass your bill?
Well, my bill,
what's wrong with your bill?
My bill is actually probably the one that covers the most territory. My bill is the only bill that actually helps the east side of the valley, all those along the Frank Kern system. Anything else any other piece of legislation does not. My bill covers more territory and fixes more problems for us.
It's more comprehensive?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right.
But as far as my biggest accomplishments, we've done a lot of great things in appropriations where we've funded certain programs, cut funding in other programs, some things like the Farm Bill. I led the fight to get rid of a lot of the subsidies and things that were in there that I felt distorted the market. I gave California farmers an opportunity to join other systems around the federal orders and things like that. But legislation that I had authored had become law in this year, in this short term, and it's stuff that benefits us here in the Valley. I've led the fight to make sure that our hospitals and our universities get the funding they can get out of some of the grants and different programs. And there's a lot of little stuff that we've done that helps a lot of people, and I'm very proud of all of those and the things that we've done. But again, water is the one that I want that home run.
That's your passion.
Yes, sir.
All right. All right, caller, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi. Your question, please.
What does your office do to reach out to your constituents?
So that's a great question. I'm probably one of the most active offices of all the offices on how we reach out to constituents. We do things like community coffees, and community coffees are something that I'm very proud of because we go into every single community, because my district covers so much territory that we actually have to go into every single little community one by one. And when we do that, we'll have interns in my office literally make 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 phone calls to actual individuals. We send out robocalls, we send out letters saying, hey, we're in your district, come spend some time with Mr. Valadao and have coffee and donuts. We were doing teletown halls almost once a week where we would call 30,000 people a night. I would be on the phone live with these people. And then we do our mobile office hours. Every single letter that leaves my office when a constituent reaches out to us, I sign every single one of those letters personally because I want to see their name, I want to see their address, I want to see what their issue is, and I want them to know that I saw that personally, and so I put my signature on it. But we've done so much with just me personally. Those community coffees, I think, are the best because you're there for an hour, hour and a half having coffee and donuts with me and asking questions and having a conversation. And I usually stay for about 30 minutes, an hour afterwards, just to make sure I have a chance to shake everybody's hands that actually show up. And we've hosted those all over the district. And when you've got interns in your office making 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 personal phone calls to these people, I mean, that's a lot of outreach from one member of Congress.
I know we're bouncing around here a little bit. Thank you, caller, for that question. I appreciate it. We're kind of bouncing back and forth from immigration to water, and we're going to get back to water, but I want to ask you about this because I want you to clarify this because I don't totally understand it myself. The Democrats claim on immigration reform that you were opposed to signing a discharge petition that would bring the House comprehensive immigration reform to an immediate vote in the House. What is a discharge petition specifically, and what would that do? A discharge petition is a political ploy. It's something that the minority parties always do when they're in the minority to get attention. But what is the petition? The petition allows... it forces a vote on an issue. But we've signed on to the bill, and I've tried to get more members. But one of the things this is where the politics come to play, and it's truly sad, because when I was one of the 3 that signed on to the bill, I started getting lit up by Democrats, by organizations that were supposed to be supportive of me, saying thank you. And all the friends out there of mine in Congress that were on the fence and considering joining me, they saw me get beat up, and they said, why would I join on now? And so after they made it so no one else would get on, they followed up with a discharge petition just to make it a political ploy. Caller, I know you're there. Hang on one second before I get to your question. So the discharge, whoops, caller, are you there? They hung up. Okay. Sorry about that. 436 MeTV option 11. So this would just force an immediate vote. Doesn't the Immigration Reform Act, doesn't it require a little bit of thinking and research rather than just going to the floor and taking a vote really quick? Oh, let's get this done? Well, and to force a vote just to go lose is bad. Go back to the health bill, the Obamacare thing. Yes. Wasn't that pushed through really quick? And we voted on that as well. We voted on amendments to fix it. We've done all that. But back to the immigration one. To force a vote on a bill that doesn't have the support to pass is asking for failure. And that's obvious. It's a political move because we've done our work to try to get as many people on as possible, but the leadership on the Republican side has chosen the step-by-step approach. But so, like you have said before, if the House had 218 votes, it wouldn't even be an issue. Yes, and and we don't, and that's the problem. If they're going to continue to beat up those who are on their side, they're not showing the rest of the world that they want more to help. Caller, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Go ahead.
Listening to him, I question his ability to compromise and to facilitate laws for the betterment of this area. I'm curious what he has done in order to facilitate compromise with the other side when you're not even understanding why they voted against you. And that's what you said earlier on water. So I'm just curious, could you explain a little bit more how you're going to go out and get in for another term, how you're going to compromise and facilitate some of these bills that you're wanting to do?
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So if you look at every single bill that we've passed, even my water bill, we did have some Republicans vote against it. We had 2, and we had a bunch of, and some Democrats have voted for it. And so it's one issue, but yes, we put a lot of stuff on the table, and it's comprehensive. It covers so many different issues, and it was one that some people struggle with, especially because of the river settlement portion of the bill. But when you look at all the different pieces of legislation, or you look at everything that I voted on or worked on, I'm part of all the different bipartisan groups. If it's problem solvers, if it's unified solutions, and all these different groups where Democrats, Republicans sit together and work through and sign on to bills and get them passed. We've actually passed a lot of bills. There are literally bills sitting today on Harry Reid's desk that have passed out of the House with nearly unanimous support. And when I say nearly, I mean within 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 votes from both sides. So there is a lot of legislation that I've worked across the aisle. And then if you look at some of the debates we've had, I've had a lot of times I was introduced on the floor by Democrats as a guy that's easy to work with and someone who is supportive of different projects. Look at the Farm Bill, for example. Colin Peterson, the highest ranking Democrat on the Ag Committee, introduced me to speak on the Farm Bill as the guy that understood this and the guy that wanted to work.
That was on C-SPAN, I believe, was it not?
That was on C-SPAN, and that was on national TV. Immigration, Luis Gutierrez, probably one of the most liberal members of Congress, who I probably don't see with eye to eye to on a lot of issues, but he came to Bakersfield and did a town hall with me in Bakersfield on immigration as one of the guys that wants to work, wants to come to solutions, and we probably don't agree on everything on immigration, but we actually work together to come up with a solution that we can get
At least
passed.
you're willing to come to the table.
Yes.
Okay. Caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Yeah. The state wants to put meters on, water meters on ag wells and domestic wells they say to meter the aquifer below, when in fact that they are planning on charging private owners for water usage. And totally against that, and I've worked for the state for years, and I know that they're lying and deceptive, and I want to know about what David thinks about that.
But before you answer that, the video that we're looking at here, Congressman, is from the Stephanopoulos farm out there on the west side, and they were telling me they've got several wells out there. It cost them up to $250,000 for each well to drill for water. That's a lot of money.
That's a bargain. There's guys out on the west side who are spending over $1 million a well.
Wow.
No, that $250,000, they're probably drilling down about 1,000 feet, putting in like a 12, 15-inch casing, probably a 15-inch casing, and getting a good 200-300 horsepower engine motor on that.
All right,
so,
I forgot the caller's question. What was it? Water meters?
So the question was on the new legislation that was signed, and that was a bipartisan piece of legislation. When I say bipartisan, bipartisan opposition. Every Democrat and every Republican here in the Valley, in the state level, voted against that. That's something I completely oppose. I agree with the caller that, yes, I do believe the state will come in and start charging.
But you're opposed to that.
I'm opposed to that for a lot of different reasons.
Give me the main one.
The main reason is they've cut off all our surface water. So they've diverted all this surface water away from us and out to the ocean, and now they're cutting off our groundwater access too. If they really wanted to help the groundwater aquifer, they would focus on making sure we had surface water.
Right, and that, before we go to break, that is a look at 2002, the groundwater. That's a look at, I think that came from Google, right? Came from Google Maps? NASA. Okay, that came from NASA Maps. Look at what 2014 looks like. That's groundwater.
That's scary.
That's a little bit scary, yeah, it is. But if, here's the thing though, Congressman, if they would allow us to have the surface water, we wouldn't be in that situation right there, the map that you just saw.
When you look at a well like we showed up earlier, that well, drilling a well at that cost, but what it costs to operate that well per day, and I don't know what horsepower he had on that, but 100 horsepower to 300 horsepower, you're looking at $10,000, $15,000, sometimes $20,000 a month just in electricity to run that. The amount of money it would save in electricity, the less of a load that would be on our system, and it wouldn't affect our underground aquifer as much if we had that surface water. It's a huge advantage.
All right, we'll go to break after the call. Caller, go ahead. You're on the air.
Yeah, let me ask a real quick question with the congressman. I think the hardest part of being in the Congress is it's divided, okay? Even with Democrats, with the president, and without. Now, in Congress, you know, you can pass a lot of the bills. The House of Representatives, you got the Ted Cruz's, you know, pushing them. And then you got the Tea Party people that's been elected. I think David has had a problem. He probably has had some more problems because he wants to compromise, you know, and get the bills done. But the Tea Party will continue to block anything that has to do with compromise. That's true. And then the other question is that, you know, me being a Democrat sounds like he's a good man. I'm not doubting he is.
Thank you.
But as long as the House of Representatives and the Congress is divided. They're divided because of what happened with the Obamacare. The whole issue started with Obamacare, and for some of us at the beginning it was good, and then we found out later after it got through that it wasn't going to be to our advantage, you know. But you have to compromise, and I can tell the congressman has a lot of problems with the Tea Party group. You know, because Ted Cruz kind of runs the whole thing, you know.
We're running kind of short on time.
What they're having a problem with is Hillary is going to take over this.
Right.
So,
I want to let him answer.
That's my only question. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
So
Thank you very much.
The issue with Washington, and this is just me and my perspective. There are a lot of us in the House that get along really well. There's a lot of Democrats and Republicans that are very good and know how to work across the aisle. And we represent different districts with different type of people. And so we've got to do our job. And so our ideas are different. But a lot of the stuff, and this is no offense to our press, but they've got to sell airtime. They've got to sell TV time. They've got to sell their radio time. So they want to get things exciting out there. And so they like to focus on some of the things that people say that are crazier on both sides of the aisle. And so those are the ones that people see at home. That's the people they read about, and they assume we're all the same. But there are good people there. There are a lot of us working together. And if you look at the 387 bills that we sent from the House over to the Senate, there are a lot of Democrat bills that have passed. There's actually more amendments added to the appropriations by one single Democrat, who's considered one of the more controversial ones, than every single Republican in the Senate. So there's a lot of bipartisan work in the House. There's a lot of effort made, and I do believe there's a lot of good people there on both sides of the aisle, and we are working well together. But there's a lot of campaigning out there too, and that just it just highlights the negative, and it's a shame because you don't get to see the good stuff.
All right, Congressman David Valadao running for re-election, Congressional District 21, running against Amanda Renteria, and we haven't even mentioned her name at all today, but we're talking about the issues here. I want to focus on that. 436 Me TV option 11. Back in just a moment.
Frigidaire. We introduced the first home freezer, the first pulsator agitator washer, and now we introduce the Frigidaire Orbit Clean dishwasher, designed with a unique wash arm that gives you 4 times more water coverage for a consistently better clean. Frigidaire, over 90 years of legendary innovation.
See the full line of Frigidaire appliances at Ventura TV Electronics and Appliances.
Back here on a Your Community segment on this Friday. The Congressman is here, and you're there. Caller, go ahead.
Hi, my name's Garrett from Lemoore. I was calling because I saw Congressman Valadao's ad about how he helped out that veteran, and I was just calling to see what is Congressman Valadao currently doing to address VA issues that have been coming up recently.
Good.
So that's a great question. We've actually passed some legislation, and this legislation made it all the way to the President's desk that helps get rid of the higher-ups, helps backlog. We also sent more money over through appropriations so that there would be more doctors, because the backlog is obviously created probably because some of the management, but there is a shortage of money, and we've been focused on making sure that they had enough money to hire their doctors, update the facilities. Fresno's got an investment going in now today, and those are things that are going to benefit the situation.
Any problems with our VA here? Or
you know,
is it running fairly smoothly?
The comments I've always heard, even down in Kern County and the Fresno VA, because I've been through the Fresno VA, I think about 3 times now since I've been a member of Congress, and it's for the most part, the people I talk to, the veterans that have been treated, they're very happy with the way they're treated, and they're very happy. Some have said it's improved over the last few years, but there is still an issue with people getting in the door quick enough.
Are there isolated incidents like the ones that happened, the disasters in Arizona and other parts of the country? Are they isolated, do you think, or is it more widespread?
There is a little, it is spread out a little bit, not as bad as what happened in Arizona, for example, but it is something that we are obviously paying attention to, because when you do talk to veterans, and my father-in-law being one of them, I've heard some of how long it takes to get in for an appointment, and that's something that we have to make sure they've got a system that allows them to go through. That's updating the facilities, making sure they have enough doctors and nurses, and that requires money, and so that's why we increase some of the money, and also went after some of the leadership to make sure they can clean up, not just the guy in charge, but also his top brass.
All right, here's the question I have. I want to talk about your bill again, the water bill, H.R. 3964. We already talked about where it stands now. Let's roll a videotape. We have a drone video from Millerton Lake, about 40% capacity. You already talked about how much water has gone into the ocean. Look at how dry Millerton is. It's not totally dry, but I mean, look at the amount of water compared to a normal year. In this compromise bill that eventually may come out of Congress and the Senate, and maybe the president will sign it, I don't know, we'll see. What do you think could happen or should happen to preserve some of that water, so all of that water doesn't go down into the ocean? So when we go out to Millerton, normally that mound that you see right there is covered in water.
Yeah, those lines are water lines, where the watermarks where they used to be.
Yeah.
So
what would a bill do to protect that Millerton Water Lake, or the water in Millerton Lake?
Well, Endangered Species Act is one thing that has a huge impact on that water. So what happens is they'll use the Endangered Species Act, and they'll come in and say, well, we've got to release a certain amount of water this week to help protect the fish for whatever reasons in the delta.
The smelt
or salmon in certain rivers. And just in the last 2 months, they've actually released 20,000 acre-feet up in Northern California, and it went out into the delta, out to the ocean, and was never pumped and recouped here for us through the San Luis Reservoir. And that was water that was wasted. And when I've read the news articles, they've actually pointed to the fact that it might not have actually helped. It could have even made it worse for those fish.
Would a bill help save some of that water?
Yes.
It would.
It does. And it also allows, for like New Melones, for example, allows for private storage of water. So if a farmer has the ability to contract for some water, that they can put some water in, that would be water that we can store in there. But it has an impact on a lot of those different things.
And then let's go to Temperance Flat. There is so much talk about building another dam, which may be 20, 30 years down the road. I don't know. This is it right here.
Yes.
Okay, if they build that, how can we be ensured that the water there will be protected as well? Protected, I say that in a way that, okay, in a drought year, or let's say we have 5 years in a row of a drought situation, how can we protect that water so it doesn't go downstream?
So that one specifically, that's where the San Joaquin River settlement plays a huge role. There was that lawsuit that played out for about 18 years where the Natural Resource Defense Council led the lawsuit to take that water and send it down the San Joaquin River. And then you saw this past summer.
Talking about this right here?
The San Joaquin River Restoration Project.
Yeah.
And that one cost taxpayer money because you saw it on the news. They were actually trucking salmon from puddle to puddle along the river in hopes of saving these salmon, and that water was being diverted away, so it was being forced to release it instead of keeping it in the reservoir, and that'll have an impact on Temperance Flat.
By the way, this was signed back in 2008.
Yeah, but it was after
Nancy Pelosi signed off on it, by the way.
It was an 18-year-long lawsuit that those farmers had to endure in those communities, and that affects Orange Cove, that affects Delano, McFarland, it affects all those communities.
The east side.
And on the east side of the valley, and that's something that my bill actually takes a shot at, and it changes
so
that.
The Friant Water Authority, they struck a deal. What kind of a deal did they strike with them? Because they're kind of crying foul right now.
Well, they gave up a chunk of water to settle the lawsuit. The lawsuit from the Natural Resource Defense Council came in and said, you need to divert water away from the reservoir to keep the San Joaquin River wet so that we can save this salmon species. And that reservoir was sending water down the Friant Kern Canal. And so they literally took water from one area and sent it down the other. And it hasn't helped the salmon, and it hasn't helped the communities there because now you've got homes, you've got things that are being affected by the water going down the San Joaquin River, and you've got places where we were getting water and we are no longer getting water.
You know, I don't know if this figure is accurate, but the agreement said that they could release 225,000 acre-feet of water per year downstream. Maybe it's more than that. I don't know.
That's a lot of water right there. 225,000 acre-feet. I mean, think about it.
That's
225,000 acres a foot deep of water.
Yeah, yeah. And that's the agreement that the Friant Water Authority struck.
Yeah. And They fought for years. It was an 18-year-long lawsuit.
Yeah.
They were running out of money, and they had to figure out something. When you've got to go up against these attorneys up in the Bay Area, it's a struggle because our guys can't afford to fight those fights that way.
So your bill would protect the water at Millerton.
It would change the river settlement.
Change the river settlement. It would also protect any water that is in Temperance Flat, if that's ever built 20 or 30 years down the road. But what about more water storage? Should we build more water storage? Does your bill address that?
Yes, my bill does address and authorize construction of Sites Reservoir, Northern California, which would benefit us here as well because it would give us more flexibility with water going through the Delta. It authorizes Los Vaqueros, and it also authorizes expansion of Shasta Reservoir.
The question is, when this bill comes out, the compromise bill, I'm assuming it will, I'm hoping it will, I'll keep my fingers crossed, will it also protect the water at Millerton?
Yes.
Do you think?
It will always have an impact because we want to make sure that we're not diverting water away from all these reservoirs. But when you look at the reservoirs we've got, we do need to add more, and we do need to make sure that the water that's there is protected for our use so that we have that opportunity. But we also want to make sure that whatever future reservoirs, that water isn't being diverted the same.
Okay, time to take a break with Congressman David Valadao here, talking water. One of my favorite topics here on Connect with Me. 436-MeTV option 11. Back in just a moment.
Considering solar? Whether you're ready to buy now or just exploring your options, the consultants at Solar Negotiators are here to help you. A call to Solar Negotiators is like calling 5 solar companies at once. You see, when local established solar contractors have gaps in their schedule, they call Solar Negotiators to fill them. Right now, get 5 years of panel cleaning and maintenance or $1,000 off your new solar panels. So stop wasting your time searching and call Solar Negotiators, because when contractors compete for your business, you win.
Back here with Congressman David Valadao and talking water, talking a lot of things, talking immigration. Okay, before we move on to high-speed rail, let me ask you about the California Dream Act. That was passed 3 years ago when you were in the State Assembly, and I saw the debate the other night, and your opponent, Amanda Renteria, she accused you of voting against it. Okay, you voted against it, but for good reason?
Well, every vote I take is for good reason. And when you look at what the problem is that we face on immigration, it's the immigration system. It's a federal issue. It's one of the reasons why I ran for Congress. I wanted to fix the immigration system. When you look at things like the California Dream Act, it was something that could be helpful for a lot of people, and it would be beneficial, and it has been beneficial. But when you look at how many people that are here that need help, there are a lot of people that need help, and so you have to focus back on the foundation and make sure that we're all on a level playing field and we have those opportunities. So that's why I've always focused on fixing the immigration system in general, because that is the foundation for everything. So that these kids that are going through the process, going through education, are secure because they're not worried about getting deported. They're not worried about other things that can impact their family, because the kids that are going through our schools and the kids that are going through our system, our kids are going to be able to stay here, get jobs, and be part of our economy.
Right. And just for the viewers at home, if you're not familiar with the California Dream Act, that allows children who are brought into the U.S. under the age of 16 without proper visas or immigration documentation to attend school on a regular basis and otherwise meet in-state tuition and GPA requirements to apply for student financial aid or benefits or whatever you call it. But when you look across the aisle, we talked about compromise and reaching across the aisle, and you already said that you're willing to compromise, and you have reached across the aisle. Do the Democrats on the other side of the aisle that you talk to, that you come in contact with, that you shake hands on a deal with, do they understand the problem of immigration? Do they understand our water problems? Like take a congressman from any state, Delaware, Missouri. Do they understand our water problems?
Yes and no. There are a lot of people understand that we're sending a lot of water out. They don't understand in the type of detail like we do here that live in the Valley. And the problem that we face here in the Valley is there are so few of us. We're lucky to have Kevin McCarthy, who's the majority leader. We're lucky to have Devin Nunes, who has worked his way up on Ways and Means and has been on this fight for a long time. But we do face a lot of opposition from the Bay Area because they are beholden to a certain demographic of people who do not like us here. They think that their delta smelt is more important than the people that live here in the Valley. And that's what we're up against right now. And there's a lot of votes up there in that San Francisco area.
I've always said if there is a food shortage, or a water shortage, and San Francisco suddenly doesn't get their allocation. Oh, by the way, that's the smelt that we're talking about. That's the
well,
the Endangered Species Act will protect that fish before they protect farmers, I guess.
Well,
in
and
a way.
the thing that
that's what's irritating.
Most people don't understand is Hetch Hetchy Reservoir is out there. Hetch Hetchy is a reservoir that
80% full, I believe.
And it is water that they have never been touched by any of these lawsuits. That water is a reservoir that's built not far from where Temperance Flat would be is at, and that water is piped directly to San Francisco at rates that were negotiated back in the 1930s.
But imagine if that was down to 30 or 40%, what the outrage in San Francisco would be.
Or if they had to pay the same type of penalties, or if they had to live by the same rules they've imposed on us. They come in and sue us for Endangered Species Act, divert our water away from us to send it down a river, and that Hetch Hetchy feeds into the same river that they're trying to protect. There's an opportunity there for them to put their money where their mouth is and actually be supportive of an issue.
And speaking of the smelt, and we're looking at some video here, or the salmon, you're in I just want to clarify so the voter at home, the people watching this program, know that you are in favor of protecting those fish, but you're also in favor of farmers like yourself having water. Why isn't there a balance?
My bill is comprehensive. It covers everything. And again, in the Delta, for those who are concerned with the Delta smelt and the baby salmon that are going through there, there's a species that was introduced there for recreational purposes, the largemouth bass and the striped bass. My bill lifts the take limit so we can catch more of those so that they're not eating so many baby salmon and so many Delta smelt.
Yeah.
So there's a fix. I offered solutions so that everybody should be at the table, but it's all politics for these people.
Yeah. And Obama, the President of the United States, of course, saying that he would never sign your bill. He said that initially when it first came out, but that's not a big surprise. But I want to move on because a lot of other things to talk about, and that is high-speed rail. We got some animation of that bullet train that's going to go from Los Angeles to San Francisco with stops right here in the Central Valley. I don't know, $68 billion to build this thing, $9 billion in bonds. You know, I'm not so sure about this. Recently, they tore out the old Del Monte building here in the city of Fresno to make way for the high-speed rail, but boy, every time I go on the internet or I see the stories come out, they're all negative about this high-speed rail. Can it be built on time? What are the cost overruns? Who's going to use it? How many jobs will it really create? Where do we stand on this?
Well, I'm opposed to the high-speed rail for a lot of different reasons. I sat on the budget subcommittee that oversaw this. I had a lot of time in committee listening to testimony from the high-speed rail authority themselves, going through the numbers, and it's just a disaster from the ground up. It is not what the voters voted on. The voters voted on a project, like you said, $33 billion, a third, from all the different, from private, from federal, and from state. The state bond. It is not going to be able to live up to that standard. When they came out with the new $68 billion number, they shrunk the tracks from 800 miles to 500 miles so it wouldn't go over that $100 billion mark, and they're relying on $52 billion from the federal side. That's more than the federal government is allocating for the whole nation on high-speed rail.
So this thing is supposed to, according to the High-Speed Rail Authority, create 450,000 permanent jobs? I find that staggering and hard to believe.
Well, and there's been whole shot over that whole job side of it because every time they count a job, let's say you get hired as an engineer for 10 years, they'll count that as 10 jobs because they count them in job years.
Yeah.
And this project is something that will go on for decades. So every single person that goes to work there for every decade, that's 10 jobs. If it takes 3 decades to build, that'll be 30 jobs. And they're going to just calculate up. And so they love pumping those numbers up, and they found a way to pump the numbers down on the cost, and they're still at $68 billion.
Well, and then they say over the course of 15 years, you'll have 990,000 jobs. But, I mean, you can play with these numbers all day long. In the end, do you think in your lifetime, in my lifetime, this thing will ever be built?
I don't know.
It's hard to say.
The way it's going now and the funding sources, I don't see where they're going to get the money. When you look at the rest of the nation, there's 435 members of Congress. Everybody is fighting for their district. And within as bad a press as this project has gotten over the years and how bad their business model is, and the peer review studies have shown that it's a disaster, it's going to be really hard to get a congressman from New York or a congressman from Florida or a congressman from Indiana to say, yeah, I'm going to take taxpayer money from my district and ship it to California for this project.
Is it possible that part of it will be built and part of it will be utilized, like from here to Madera or here to Merced, and then it'll stop?
Well, and then you look at that. We've already got Amtrak going through the valley.
Right.
And it's not a perfect system, but when they wrote the bond, it specifically stated it had to go over 220 miles an hour in the 2 hours and 40 minutes. So what that did was it basically eliminated all the existing corridors, so it can't take the current line. We could have put in a train that would have done 110 miles an hour on the existing train tracks that we have today. I mean, there's a lot of things we could have done, but now they have to build a train track that meets that 220, and it's going to go literally a mile or two away from the existing train tracks. So what does that do? That eliminates all these communities and all these train tracks that communities have built on and invested around. All that infrastructure is in place, and we eliminate all of that. So my Hanford train station, my Corcoran station, my Wasco station, all those are eliminated, and all those people are disenfranchised from a system that works today because they want to meet that Fresno, Bakersfield, or that speed limit. Those are all things that have a direct impact on people that live here in the valley.
It sounds like you think maybe this is going to be a watered-down project. Even if it does get built. I got to take a break here. They're signaling me, but we're going to be back with Congressman David Valadao here on Connect with Me. 436-MeTV option 11. Still plenty of time in on this program if you want to call in. Back in a moment.
Retro TV, your home for classic television. The greatest shows in history are here for you to enjoy. Join Cosby and Culp as secret agent men in I Spy. Ride along the Ponderosa with the Cartwrights in Bonanza. Hit the beat with Joe Friday in Dragnet. And that's not all. Retro TV offers endless fun and excitement for the whole family to enjoy. Retro TV, the best in classic television.
You can find Retro TV on over-the-air channel 13.4.
Back here talking about high-speed rail with the Congressman, and I guess California now, the state high-speed rail authority, they're looking for manufacturers to actually build the high-speed rail system. And I don't know how difficult a process this is going to be, but I mentioned before the break that it may in fact be a watered-down project. It may not go from Los Angeles directly to San Francisco. Might only be a Fresno to Bakersfield or Fresno to Merced. Who knows how it's going to end up? I don't know. We could talk about this all day, though.
Yes, we
know
can.
we could. All right, let's get to another topic, and that's Ebola. This thing is, my goodness, I think people are on edge around the nation about this. Let's put the picture up of the first person who died here in the United States. His name is Thomas Eric Duncan. He was diagnosed with Ebola here in the States. He died on Wednesday in Dallas. He was 42 years old. Given an experimental drug which apparently did not work, Duncan is believed to have contracted Ebola in Liberia. He left Monrovia on September 19th on a flight to the U.S. He arrived here the next day, and then he started showing symptoms on the 24th of September, entered the hospital 2 days later, and then, of course, the rest they say is history. I don't know. I only know what I've read. You think people are scared?
Yes.
Are you scared?
Yes, absolutely. I spend a lot of time in airports, and
Should we be worried about it?
Well, I think we should always be worried. We should always do all the things that CDC has recommended, washing your hands. I mean, some of the things that they recommend are pretty easy to do. Don't touch bodily fluids from other people. Sometimes it's a little more difficult. It is something we should be very concerned with, something we should be paying attention to because of the way it spreads and how long it takes to show symptoms of it. And as global as this economy has gotten, where you could literally be in another part of the world in less than a day, it is something we should be paying attention to, and I think the president needs to act a little quicker on this.
Right. We're not isolated anymore from the world like we used to be because of the travel situation, and I heard the head of the CDC say this morning that this is almost like when AIDS first began in the early 80s. There was this scare across the country and almost panic by a lot of people, and there's Thomas Eric Duncan again. Our prayers and thoughts go out to his family, of course, but what should we be doing that we're not doing, in your opinion?
Well,
without knowing, I mean, we're not medical experts, obviously.
No, and that's something that I spent some time talking to doctors about. I was actually meeting with the pharmaceutical company not too long ago because they feel like they've got some products out there that have real promise. But it is something that we just have to be cautious of. It's something we have to start really paying attention to. All the reasons for a lot of different things, because we do have people that want to hurt us, they want to destroy us, and I don't want to give any ideas to any groups out there, but this is something that they can play a role in.
You're talking about terror groups. They want to get to us. This might be one way.
Yeah, this is something that is pretty scary because of the opportunities and
Should
because
we ban flights from, say, Liberia or Africa, or what?
I wouldn't say specifically ban flights, but really, really scrutinize. If we're going to spend the type of money we're spending there, sending our soldiers over, there's no reason why we can't increase the amount of scrutiny that is involved when people do come from these countries, and really starting to pay attention. If it does take up to 21 days for them to show symptoms of this disease, so it's something that's going to be very difficult. You can't quarantine people for 21 days, but it is something where we can really scrutinize and make sure that they're doing their jobs at our border openings.
At this point, I've heard the head of the CDC say that it's not airborne. You can't
Yes.
catch it through
right.
airborne, but you can catch it in other ways. And you know, here's the thing politically. I think when something like this happens, Congressman, we look to our leaders to do something. What should the president be doing right now? Because they're looking towards him. They're looking toward Washington. What are you doing to protect me here in Fresno?
Well, just in the last few days, Republicans signed off, the House leadership has signed off on another $700 million to make sure that we fund this fight and make sure the resources are there that the president needs. We always want to keep, because we are the legislative branch, we control the purse, but we also have to oversight, and we want to make sure that he has a plan in place and that we agree with that plan and that we can fund that plan. We did allocate more money, we did send it over. We want to make sure that is used properly, that it can have an impact. But again, the president is taking a lot of action now. I think that looking at what they're doing at some of our ports of entry is a good start. We just need to focus on what's the most effective measures and take those opportunities to do them.
As long as we're talking about terror, I might as well throw in ISIS here. Should we have boots on the ground in Syria fighting ISIS? Because now they're taking over some of these towns I see in the northern part of Syria along the border with Turkey. And we know what they've done in Iraq. What should we be doing more than just airstrikes?
You can't do a good job with airstrikes without boots on the ground. But the bill that we voted on just before we left, that we sent over to the Senate to help with what was going on there, actually specifically told the president, before we arm people, we want to know who you want to arm, how you came up with it, and how you plan to execute that. And the opportunity is there for us to actually start sending money that way. But we are very focused on making sure that we have a plan that works. As far as putting boots on the ground, before I say yes, I want to make sure, I want to know their rules of engagement. I do not want to send a bunch of our veterans or a bunch of our men and women there to fight a fight with their hands tied behind their back like we've had in past situations.
So who would we be fighting? ISIS? Al-Qaeda? There's an off-branch of Al-Qaeda now that's come up in the equation. So we're arming those rebels that are siding with Assad in Syria. And so, but a year ago, they were our enemy.
Yeah. And therein lies the problem, and that's why we want to make sure that, and that's why we voted on the bill that says we want to know who these people are that you want to help and how you came up with this.
So who are we helping and who are we fighting against?
Yes, and that is something that the president alone has that type of intelligence. It's not something that average members of Congress have access to. The CIA, all the type of intelligence, what people are saying on the ground, what the people are doing. That is something that's very specific that only the commander-in-chief has. But we want to have oversight, and so before we send him money to do these things, we want to know how, why, and who. And so that's what we asked. We also gave him the ability to accept money from foreign countries to help pay for this, because that is something that he said he has.
All right, a couple of minutes left. I know that you don't have the same intelligence that the president looks at each and every day with his staff, but and he doesn't have, you don't have access to CIA and all that other stuff. But do you think ISIS is a real threat?
Absolutely.
Really?
Yes.
To us here on
Yes.
in the homeland?
You saw what so few people did on 9/11, and we see all the time opportunities that they are trying to take. I think that there's a real fight that we need to be paying attention to. I don't know if people should be losing sleep at night over this here in the U.S., but it is something that, as your representative, I do pay it a lot of attention to, and I do want to stay on the forefront of this.
Don't take it with a grain of salt is
Yes.
what you're saying. All right, a minute left. Look into the camera there and tell our viewers why they should vote for you.
Well, I'm very proud of my record. I'm very proud of the fact that I know how to work across the aisle, and I know how to talk to folks on both sides, because I'm a normal guy. I'm a businessman that grew up here in the Valley. I've focused my whole life, my kids, everything that we do is here for the Valley. I'm going to continue to do so in the next 2 years as a member of Congress, but the issues that most affect us are where I've focused all my attention, and I do everything in my power to reach out to my constituents through all the little means, all the means that we've done, that I mentioned earlier, teletown halls, community coffees. But it's about me being connected and being part of this community and representing you in Washington. So I thank you for the opportunity and the honor for the last 2 years, and I look forward to the next 2. Thank you.
Congressman David Valadao, it's a pleasure to have you on this program.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right. Come back again.
Happy to.
All right. You're welcome.
I really enjoyed
anytime.
this.
All right. Good luck on your campaign. Thank you. Congressman David Valadao, our thanks to him, and thank you. Have a great weekend. We're back on Monday with Dennis Hart. He'll be talking Major League Baseball playoffs. See you then. Have a great weekend.